So, what's going on? It is election night out there. Now, this is not a political podcast. We've been kind of veering on the CU podcast the past few weeks into political topics here and there, and, social topics as well with trash like Devin Faraci, and then that weird Casey Neistat video that I'm glad, most people agreed with Ian and I that was kind of ridiculous for a big YouTuber to not only come out and endorse a political candidate, nothing wrong with that, but then to ask followers to go out and shame other YouTube content creators into revealing who they were voting for. We don't live in a banana republic, do we? We don't want to force people to disclose who they're voting for so we can intimidate them or do something nasty. That's not what democracy is all about. That's not what America is all about. But it is election night. So I'm going to say this. I tweeted out a few things about my thoughts about the election before. I was just on a podcast with Brent Black, a.k.a. Brentalfloss, last week, talking about this political cycle in particular. This is what we have to deal with. It looks like there's according to 538, about a 70% chance of Hillary Clinton being the next president versus Donald Trump. Whoever wins on November 9th, the day you're hearing this, it should have been decided by then, unless there's going to be some very close states, which it looks like really, really early on that there could be at least two states that are going to be razor thin in terms of the margins. We have to get through this. This is not a sports game, America. It should not be a war between two sides. This is not the 1860s anymore. Politics is not a zero-sum game. Some people were tweeting that out. What that means is it's not a tug of war between two sides, and the more you give up, the less you get. That's not what most political issues are, and that's not what most people, in terms of their beliefs and what they want in life, that's not how it plays out. We all have families. We all have people we love. We all have hopes and dreams and aspirations. That's true across the board. And most Americans will agree on certain things, or at least a chunk of them. But the way it is with these two parties, you're not really given that option to come to sort of agreement. It's not to the benefit, most of the time, for the two political parties to come through some sort of compromise. It's almost as if the media likes to. I'm not going to be on go on the whole media's evil thing, but the media likes ratings, and the media likes there to be this much competitiveness between basically two sides of the nation. When you look at it, 45% for one candidate, 42 or 3% for the other. They like that. They don't want a blowout. They don't want 70% for one candidate and 30% for the other. There's no ratings there. And at the end of the day, that's what CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC, NBC, that's what they care about, is ratings. So that said, those people down the street, those neighbors, those family members even that have different political beliefs than you, on election night, they'll still be your neighbors, your family members, your loved ones, your friends. They will still exist on November 9th. So we have to find a way to come together. This isn't just a kumbaya, I wish everyone could agree on everything. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this sort of vicious, divisive, toxic campaign cycle cannot continue bleeding into our everyday lives, or else we're not going to get anything done, and we'll never be able to get to a sort of a common core of beliefs and how we should even strive to go forward, let alone the actual sort of methods of doing that. We have to at least believe that we can come to compromise, that two sides can agree on something. Like someone tweeted, it's a zero-sum game, because I tweeted out, don't give in to tribalism, the us versus them mentality. Because when that happens, then you are guaranteeing nothing gets done, nothing gets accomplished, that we are as bad as what everyone makes us out to be, especially the rest of the world looking at us like we're fucking idiots, that we're playing a game of dodgeball against each other, just throwing volleyballs into each other's faces and groins. And we are metaphorically doing that in an election like this. So we have to get past this. However we do that, you start with the common beliefs, and on many topics there is agreement, whether it's reform of the justice system, whether it's gun laws, whether it's medical marijuana, whether it's cutting the deficit, growing the economy, even something as divisive as energy, where one side thinks, you're going to destroy the environment, and the other side's like, well, we don't think we're destroying the environment, but you're going to take our jobs because you think we're destroying the environment. There's always some sort of commonality in between those two extremes. We just have to get there. We just have to find it. We have to just work towards it. We have to believe that we are good enough to do that, at least. If we don't believe that we can get along with one another, if we automatically demonize the other side just because they hold different beliefs, and not even in everything, just in certain aspects. It's like being married to someone or having a girlfriend or boyfriend. If you can get to like 70% agreement, that's pretty good for most things. And I think, honestly, that's where we are on a lot of topics. You're not going to agree on everything, but you start with what you have in common. It's like doing any sort of negotiation for video games. I'm trying to bring back to video games before you all click off on this podcast. When you're negotiating for a large deal, you two sides, you have the seller and you have the buyer, and you're going through the cost of the games. There's going to be game prices you disagree with. There always is. So, for example, looking at my shelf here, someone has a copy of, I don't know, Dr. Chaos, an uncommon game, and they're saying, well, I think it's worth $18, and the buyer's like, well, I only think it's worth $7. So that doesn't mean they can't negotiate for the other games in the stack because they disagree in that one. What that means is they can put that one aside for now and then move on to a game like, let's see, Ghosts and Goblins. Well, I think that game's worth $12. Well, I think it's worth $10. Okay, how about we go with $11? Okay, we got that done. Well, how about a game like The Great Waldo Search? I think it's worth $10. I think it's worth $8. All right, how about we settle on $10? Sounds cool. Put that on the stack. Those two things are done. So not to simplify the political system, but if the sides thought like that, let's get done the stuff that we are close on at least, and not, a huge valley apart. The American people would have a lot more faith in not just the system, but in Congress in general. But right now, you have people just looking at, well, we disagree on that gun knack price. You think it's worth $150. I think it's only worth $50. Or we're too far apart, so we're not going to do any negotiations or anything else. That's bullshit. But that's how things are operating right now, and it's a sort of weird, toxic environment going on in politics right now that's making it worse. So remember that. Start with the commonality with any negotiation or in politics, because politics is just negotiation and compromise. That's all it is, and building coalitions. Wow, I can't believe I just try to spin off the election night into video game negotiations, but I think I might have done it successfully. I don't know. So don't worry, the world's not going to end if Clinton's elected. The world's not going to end if Trump's elected. Hell, the world didn't end with a fucking civil war, and I don't think we're going to go that route. We're not going to get our muskets again and start shooting at each other. Then again, I might be wrong.